And we're also graced with the presence of our father, Apostle Vutabwashe. We had quite a powerful unveiling of the theme, Wonders in the Deep, where he talked about how we need to change our perspective of how we see things. Sometimes it's only the way we see things that affects the results that we get. And I'm so excited for all of you here today. Wonders in the Deep. Now as we move into our second session, we have quite an amazing leader who is about to take the podium. She's an internationally recognized family business expert and family office advisor, focused on helping families build and preserve multi-generational wealth. She's a third-generation family business leader. She's widely respected for her work in governance, succession planning, legacy building, and family business continuity across Africa. She is the founder of Naka Legacy Planning, co-founder of African Family Firms, and is associated with institutions such as Mutendi, Montessori Chiratidzo Schools, and Neo Education Fund. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Tsitsi Mutendi. Let's give you a round of applause. You can do better. Let's give you a round of applause as she comes through.
Thank you, everyone, and good afternoon. So my topic for you today is Beyond the Founder, building businesses that survive, scale, and last for generations. So I was told by one of my hosts, before I get to that, thank you so much for having me here today, Apostle. I'm grateful to you and your team for having me. And I hope that I make an impact through the conversation I'll have today. As you can see, I'm all dressed in red. Somebody kindly asked me, am I a traditional healer? And I was like, that's the first time. I'm actually wearing a Xhosa traditional outfit. It's my choice for today because this week at Mutendi Montessori is Africa Week in celebration of being African. And for this year, I've decided to honor the Xhosa tradition by wearing the umbako all week. Right, so a lot of you might be wondering what I am doing standing in front of you talking about multi-generational wealth, yet I'm not at that age of having multi-generational wealth and having great-grandkids yet, right? So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I think some of you know me from Jewel Magazine. Anyone know Jewel Magazine? What about Edgar's Club Magazine? Anyone know Edgar's Club Magazine? Yes. So I started my journey in entrepreneurship at 19, and I was most famously known for Jewel Magazine and Edgar's Club Magazine for many years. I was in publishing. But in 2018, my life took a detour. And the detour was I went into education. And what did that look like? It looked like a mom who had been building in one space and then came across somebody who introduced them to Montessori and then decided to take their children into a different education space, a different way of learning. And then in 2018, I convinced my husband in 2017, pregnant with my third, to say, okay, let's start a school. He looked at me and he was like, no, she must have lost her mind. Something has gone terribly wrong. But he was kind enough to hold my hand, and we went in the process where we committed to educating our own children, and now children of many, many Africans. In 2018, how that trajectory played out was early in the year, we'd just opened the school. We'd sacrificed our family home and given it up. Remember what was said by the previous speaker, you can't expect someone else to invest in your dream. So for us, we'd just bought our family home renovated it, and we thought we'd arrived. Then God said, no, you haven't even started. So we then invested and left the family home and converted it into a school. At the same time, 2 months into the journey, my dad passed away. That comes to that conversation of being a third-generation family business member. What does third generation look like? You're thinking that my grandparents, my parents, and me being third generation, right? I can tell you safely, as an African business inheritor, I inherited no cash. What I did inherit was the audacity. My grandparents were both family business owners back in the day when there was colonialism. They owned general dealers back in the rural areas. You know, those businessmen. Those were my grandparents on both sides of the family. So my maternal grandparents were in Chiweshe building. My paternal grandparents were in Nyajidzi Ngutu building. And they invested in their children. And their children went into medicine, and they met up Pagomo, and they got married. So I grew up surrounded by family businesses. All I knew was family businesses. I grew up with people who owned buses, people who owned stores. Everyone was family businesses. My friends were from family businesses, so I was acclimatized to family businesses, right? Then my dad died. The unfortunate incident that happened when my dad died caused a breakdown in communication within the family. My dad was the first black dermatologist in Zimbabwe. Yet I had to be named the executor of his estate. I knew nothing about what he had built or lost. And at the same time, I now had to fight family members to get his death certificate changed because somebody had been spiteful and put their peasant farmer. So his life's work had been ignored by everybody because he went through hard economic times. He failed to be able to build his business past the stage he'd built it, and now there was nothing. But what he did have was a child who was very adamant that her dad would be remembered. So what did I do? I started wanting to understand. I got married into a family that was a big family. I think you all heard the Mutendi name. And they've been building for a very long time. Then I asked myself, me and my husband, we're building, but what are we building and why? We've just left publishing, we've just gotten into education. Are my children going to stand where I'm standing right now, trying to figure out why they were surrounded by family businesses, why they grew up in a family business, but there's nothing to show for it? Everything just disappears. Or are we going to build something and then when it's their turn to take over, they're not going to be interested at all? They're just going to turn around and say, yeah, this is mom and dad's project. I mean, it kept us, but it's mom and dad's project, right? So for me, it became a fact-finding mission. How do I stop the cycle? How do I break this generational curse? Because it's going into a third generation now. I'm building something. But I'm so busy building, I haven't thought that I'm bringing people into it that know nothing about the business. And I was lucky because we were right at the beginning of our business when this happened. So I went through the process of being executor, understanding how estates are unraveled and put back together, and honoring my father, and being able to take his name forward. However, I also then went through that process where I wanted to understand how I could stop this happening to my family and other families, which is the conversation around generational wealth. And when I started talking about generational wealth, no one was talking about it. There was no information on the continent. There was no one to lead me. I started Googling, started searching, all the possible places. No one had the answer. Then after a lot of deep research, I then found out the answer to what was going on to our family and the families before us and the families around us, which is lack of governance. So when everybody hears governance, the first thing you think of is corporate governance, right? You're thinking we need a board, you need people to sit down, and we need to do things that show that you can invest in us. What people are not taught about is family governance, and that's what I specialize in. When I started doing the work in family governance, I realized that I was bringing to the forefront a conversation that was not happening in Africa. I was engaging spaces that in Africa were seen as taboo because we think we are going to pass on wealth, but what we don't know is we're passing on more than just money. We're passing on substance. We're passing on our story into the future. And what does the future have to say back to us today? And so, in walking this path, I founded African Family Firms, which is arguably the biggest African family business association on the continent, with over 3,000 families that are part of our organization. And what do we focus on? Building multi-generational wealth, supporting families that need to understand what family governance and succession is. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create industries in Africa that outlive the founders. So you see the amazing speaker that spoke before me, he spoke about what he's building. What I do is make sure that whatever he builds today lasts at least 5 to 10 generations into the future. Where you're no longer just talking about the Rockefellers, but you're talking about the Mutendis. You're talking about people you can recognize, people that you know their stories, where they came from, where they're going to, and you can support their services and products. And they, at the same time, can provide those services and products in a way that evolves with every generation. It just doesn't stop where you start. It has to continue to grow. That is how we build economies, and that is how we build that money that we say is long money. Right? What does that look like? What is family governance, you might be wondering, because you heard corporate governance. What is family governance? Family governance has pillars and anchors. It has pillars and anchors that then form into a framework. And from today, I want to share with you the pillars that are of family governance so that when you walk away from this session, and you walk into your weekend, you start planning building generational wealth because you have the right tools, right? With family governance, it's the child that you give birth to who wasn't planned for. And when I say wasn't planned for, I'll explain it a little bit better. When you're running a business, and your finances are not working, you start thinking, we need a better financial director or financial manager, right? And you then put out that HR notice and you start looking for a certain list of qualifications that will help you identify the right person to do the job. Then you hire the person. That's how corporate governance works. In a family, a child is born. That qualifies them. Already they're qualified to be an heir. The law already sees them as somebody who's going to be an inheritor of whatever you have built. So you are not going into it the way you would in corporate governance, where you're looking for someone who's already qualified. You are starting to help the person who has joined to be qualified. Does that make sense? So what you're looking at when you start building family governance is what we call the 5 capitals of wealth. The 5 capitals of wealth can be used in your business, and they can be used even if you are in a career, because what you're building is wealth. Whether you're building it in the hundreds, the thousands, the millions, the billions, or the trillions, because now Forbes is about to hit $1 trillion lists. Are you part of that list? Are you building to be part of that list? Right. So what are the 5 capitals of wealth? Capital number 1, human capital. Human capital is the people, the individuals in your family, whether it is you yourself, your family members, could be your spouse, your children, it could be your extended family. Who are the human capital? Just like I was speaking about, you look at what you need for a financial director. Now you're looking internally and saying, what do you have inside your family? Who do you have inside the family? What are they skilled at? Don't just look at their skills in terms of how they can work in the business. Look at their health and mental well-being. Are they capable? You cannot just put somebody just because they are there in a position that they cannot handle. It doesn't work. And sometimes you need to know who you can make the MC and who you can send to help in the kitchen. Not everyone is suited for every position. Understand the different members of your family and be able to give them the best job for their skill set. Always take an audit. How well is our leader? Health-wise, are they still able to cope? Do they need support? What does that support look like? What is their mental health? Is stress something that affects their decision making? Should we put them in a position where they have to make a decision when they are stressed? Or is there a better person to serve to do that? Your human capital is looking at the individual holistically. If you're looking at yourself holistically, ask yourself, are you capable? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And use those to your advantage. It's like playing on a chessboard. If you want to win, you need to know which chess piece to move and when. That is your human capital. Your next capital is your intellectual capital. What is intellectual capital? Intellectual capital is the knowledge that you have that no one else has. That is the secret sauce to your success. So when you think of KFC, do you know how nice KFC can taste? But up to now, their recipe, people are trying to copy it, but they cannot get access to it because it's intellectual capital. How you run your business is your business. But have you documented it and put it in a way that you can pass it on to your inheritors, that you can pass it on to your stewards? Do they know what to do if you are suddenly not there? Do you have a manual that someone can say, okay, if I am going to go into this organization, this is what I'm going to do? And let me tell you how important intellectual capital is. So when we were building these schools, we're saying we started with the little school that I told you about. Now we moved into a 700-student campus. And we are deploying one of the most complex learning methodologies there are for children. It's simple in that it lets the child lead in the learning, but it's complex in that most people wouldn't try it because of the investment you need to put into Montessori learning. And we've invested from children from the ages of 3 right up to A-level. And because of that, it gets trickier. When you're doing a Montessori preschool, you've got a couple of kids, maybe 30 kids, and you're deploying Montessori. We are looking at a 700 PACS campus, and it's all Montessori, right? And our claim to fame is my oldest daughter, the one who made us start the journey, wrote her O-levels at 13 and passed. So now everybody wants to do that, right? And we're saying, okay, how do we do it? We have to create a system that makes sure that every child that passes through our hands, no matter where we are, goes through the same system my daughter went through. And I have 3 kids. So my son went through the same system, and he's currently 11 in Form 3. My youngest daughter, who was 1 month when we started, she's in grade 6 and she's 8. It's because what did we manage to do? It's our intellectual capital. we formulated a formula where we said, if a child starts with us at the age of 3, this is how we deploy it. If a child joins halfway through the journey, this is how we deploy it. Every single department has a manual. Every single way we do things. So if we are not there today, this can continue to grow. And our goal, like the apostle said, is a big goal. It's 500 schools. And what does that look like? It looks like 10 schools a country. Because if you want to eat an elephant, how do you eat it? Bite by bite. You don't eat a whole elephant. But intellectual capital is the one thing that is holding us afloat, because every time we do something, we ask ourselves, is this our secret sauce? If someone is to walk in and fill in these shoes, are they able to do it? What does that look like for you in your business? Is it that if you are not there, the bank accounts will close? Operations will stop happening because you're not there. If you are not there, your child doesn't even know where the business starts and ends. Because you don't start teaching children when they're older. I've learned this the Montessori way. We started having family meetings with our 3-year-old and making her part of the conversation, and now she's 8. If you ask her about that business, she understands it very well. Because I'm not training her to take over. I'm taking her to be the leader of the business. I'm training all of them to lead the business. At any point in time, if any one of us is not there, they have the intellectual capital, they have the knowledge. What are you doing with your intellectual capital? Do you have it in place? Have you started creating it? Who has access to it? Your intellectual capital also involves your stories. Our stories are so important. Our stories are where we've come from, where we're going to. They're the ones that are going to continue to motivate our next gens. They're the ones that are going to give our next gens identity. If we forget our stories, we forget our identity. If we forget our identity, we forget our purpose. If we forget our purpose, our business will not last. So intellectual capital is one of the most strongest capitals that you need to think deeply into. What is it for you, and how are you going to deploy it? Then, the notorious capital, social capital. What is social capital? Social capital is what people say when I'm not in the room. Already you could see somebody had already said, she's dressed in red, black, and white. Is she? What is she? Already social capital was forming. Somebody was thinking something. Somebody was moving in a direction, right? But I could stand here, get the mic, and explain myself. What happens when you don't have the mic and you can't explain yourself? What are people going to say when you're not in the room? How is your lack of presence in that room going to be affected? If we all know, money is moved by relationships more than anything. So who we talk to, how we talk to them, why we talk to them, moves money for us. If I can tell you the number of people God has placed in my path for social capital, it's incredible. I was sharing in the session before here where I said, there's a gentleman I met last year, and I didn't meet this man physically. We had a conversation about family business. We were talking about Mutendi Montessori. I was in the process of looking for funding. This gentleman is based in the Middle East, never met me. We had a 1-hour session. He charges $300 for 15 minutes of speaking to him, but he found me on LinkedIn, and I kept on saying, I'm going to get money and I'm going to book a session with him, but I want to book a session when I know what I want to talk to him about, because he'd crossed my path many times. Then he came into my inbox randomly and he said, can we talk? And I was like, He wants to talk. I need about an hour to talk to him, not 30 minutes. And then he's like, let me set up the meeting. And he set the meeting up himself. I got into the meeting, spoke to him for 1 hour, walked away. I was like, it is what it is. If he can come through with what we discussed, brilliant. If not, that's fine. Last week, completely forgot about this conversation. I'm busy living life. Then my LinkedIn started having like 100, 150 people commenting, adding me. I'm like, what's going on? I opened LinkedIn, and this man had gone onto his LinkedIn, and he's been featured in Forbes, he's been featured in Fortune. He's on every list going right now in terms of important voices in family business and family wealth. And let me give you context. When you hear family office, and you hear I'm a family office advisor, it means I work for families that have a net worth of over $100 million and above. That's family office. And so anybody who's in family office to mention you in a room means you've been impactful. And this gentleman went and put me on a list where he put me as number 1 on the top 20 voices to listen to when it comes to family wealth building in Africa and family office building in Africa. And that is social capital, because I could never have bought that. I influenced it simply by having a conversation with him where I was honest and open. I told him what I needed. He said, I can help you to an extent. I didn't give him pressure after that. I was like, when he's ready, he's ready. I'm following my path because I knew what I am doing. I'm building generational wealth. My focus is what I'm building, right? And then he went in and he built and strengthened my social capital. Who talks about you and what do they say about you? Is your child going to be able to enter a room because of your name? Or is that door going to be shut because of you? Just hearing your name can shut doors for your child. They will never be able to get opportunities because of you. Or is it because of you, just hearing your name, they're going to say, oh, I have an opportunity, even when there was no opportunity available, simply because it is you. So always remember, social capital means when you go onto social media, don't just comment for the sake of commenting. If it's got nothing to do with you, it's got nothing to do with you. Keep it moving. Because that one comment, especially on the interweb, can be screenshot and shared many years into the future, or at a pivotal moment where you need that social capital. And one angry comment because you were having a bad day or whatever was happening is now shared. Treat it as gold, because everything is built and anchored on relationships. The relationships that you know you have, the relationships that you influence, the relationships that exist because of you. Your next capital is spiritual capital. We are here today because of spiritual capital. Because of our value systems, because of our purpose, because of men of God called us into his house and said, let us speak on business. You're here because you believe. And what is it that you believe in? If people are not clear about what you believe in, they will not engage you. They will walk away from you simply because you do not share the same values as them, because you're not aligned with them, or because they're not clear on who you are as a person. The power of spiritual capital is being very clear about who you are, what you believe in, and what your path is. It is the power that is going to anchor your children for generations. They shouldn't be confused about what you believe in, what your values are, what your purpose is, because it's the one thing that we hold on to when we lose our loved ones. And it's important that that's clear in your business, in your family, in the way you do things. Then your final capital is the one everybody thinks is the most important, yet is the one that is right at the end, is the financial. Why is financial at the end? Because if you know who you are, who your team is, who your chess pieces are, and you create the playbook and you understand what needs to be done when it needs to be done, and you've built the network and the gravitas that goes with your name and the way you operate, and you're very clear about what you believe in, who you believe in, and how you do things, the money will follow. It will only follow when all the other capitals are aligned. If it's not coming, it's because there is a break. There's somewhere where one of your capitals are not aligned. And if you don't fix it, the money won't come. The opportunities won't come. You heard from the previous speaker, he's very clear about who he is. He's very clear about where he's going. He has a playbook. The money is coming. Even when you were sitting in another country and you realize that, okay, I've just come onto something and it's really working, the first thing he did was like, I need to create a playbook. I need to create intellectual capital. I can't just go free-falling into this. That's called understanding your capitals, understanding when to deploy them, how to deploy them, and why to deploy them. So how does this work on family governance, you're wondering? Now you have your 5 capitals, you have the 5 things you need to know. How does it work? Remember when I said that child is born into the family and immediately they become a shareholder? There is a framework that helps you manage your shareholders. The framework is very simple. The first thing you do is set up a constitution. You know how the country has a constitution? And the constitution directs everything that we do. A family also needs a constitution. A living document, not one that you create and you forget about, but one that is exercised. Just like if you go into the courts, they will use the constitution to guide them. Your family constitution covers quite a lot of things, and that's a lot of the work I do, helping families create that family constitution. Why is the family constitution important? From the family constitution, you can then draw things like contracts, wills, who goes next, why they go next, what happens when you have new family members, who gets shareholding, who doesn't get shareholding. What is the legal aspects that need to be considered? What are the cultural aspects that need to be considered? And who is put up for consideration? The Constitution covers that. The Constitution itself is not a legal document, but all the documents that emit from it are legal documents that can be put into play. With the Constitution, let me give you an example that makes it easier to understand. Me and my husband, my children form a family constitution. We are the first generation. We're the inheritors and the builders of what we're currently building, the Mutendi Montessori brand and the Chiratizo brand. We have family meetings. The kids understand what's going on, what that looks like. Currently, because me and my husband are what we would say G1, Generation 1, our children would be G2, Generation 2. Then their children would be G3. 98% of Black African family businesses fail to transition from G1 to G2. That means 98% of your businesses will fail without governance. 2% succeed. On a continent as big as Africa, that's a shocking statistics because globally, 70% fail and 30% succeed. So with me and my husband being G1 and our children being G2, it's still pretty easy to think about succession. We have to start thinking about conversations around how do we ensure they benefit from all the capitals of wealth? How do we start planning their succession? Succession is not planned when you're old and you're ready to give up power, because you're never ready to give up power. Succession is planned the moment the child is born. The moment the child is born, you must be clear, that is succession. They're already coming in, they've taken your name, they've taken the name you've given them. Now it's up to you to help mold them to become the leaders you need them to be, and use the strengths that they have and understand the weaknesses that they have. Within the G1 and G2 is when you form what is called a family council. Me and my husband will have seats on that council. Our 3 children have seats on that council. And that completes the line of members of family council as going forward into the future. Because what happens is the multiplier. Right now we're a family of 5. But when you're thinking of generational wealth, think of yourself as each child is a family already. So consider them as a family of 5 each. We have 5 families, well, we have 4 families in our house. The 3 my children have, and me and my husband. Consider it as a pot. If I'm cooking from a pot, the pot I'm cooking for Maina Baba Mutendi and our children, the one pot might be enough. We might add a couple of other pots so we can put relish and all those things. But when you add the other 4 families of 5 children each, is that pot going to be enough? That's when you have to start thinking outside just the one pot. Diversification, growth, going into different industries, growing the business bigger. Me thinking of 500 schools is just not building legacy. It's also ensuring that that pot that we're building is going to be able to accommodate the other 4 families. Because of those 4 families that have 5 children each, or 5 members each, multiply every member again in the next generation. Can you see the multiplier effect? In each generation, you just add 5 to every single family born, every individual born. So from just 2 people, we became 5. From 5 people, we're going to be 17. From 17 people, you just keep on the multiplier effect. So when you're thinking generational wealth, you cannot be thinking of millions, as the apostle said. You have to be thinking of billions. Because otherwise it will stop at number 3. After your grandkids, it's not going anywhere. You did not plan long money. You were hustling. You wanted kutujinjifambi. Jafamba. But if you want generational money, long money, Rockefeller money, you need to be thinking, we need more pots, we need a bigger pot, we need to change out the pot regularly, but something has to happen. That means you are training your team for growth from birth. Don't start trying to train an adult. You know the Bible says, teach a child in its ways when they're young. It's because you are teaching the child for growth, you're teaching them for amplification, right? In that family council, that means, needless of how big the family grows, the chairs that remain the same are the 4 original chairs. The G1 chair and the 3 families. So the tree will grow from there, but you will not have more than those number of family council members. Otherwise, you will just have a lot of noise. How do you manage the rest of the family? we use what is called a family assembly. A family assembly is, you know, when we were growing up, when everyone went kwagogo, went to the grandparents, or we went to a central member of the family, and we spent time there, and we got to know everyone. Who is this person? What are they doing? Why are they doing it? You know why that is important? Because when you know everybody that sits at the family council, you know how their decisions are going to weigh. When you want to grow the business, you know the person who's going to say no because they have school fees. They'd rather take the money than reinvest in the business. You know the people who have substance abuse, and you're quick to say, okay, their decision is not going to be made because they come to the meeting sober. Your family assembly allows you to understand every single member of the family. It's required at least once a year for the family to meet in its entirety. One of the most beautiful things that I've learned from the family that I married into is that every Monday without fail, regardless of where you are in the world, we will have a family assembly online. We will sit down, they will count every single person who's attending, where they are in the world. If there's a new baby that is born, if there's a loss in the family, it will all be accounted for. Why is this important? It reminds us of who we are, where we are, why our decisions have push and pull factors. How does this trio of Constitution, Assembly, and Council work in the governance? If you know what is going on through the Assembly, the appointed members of the Family Council then make decisions on major things that affect the business. And then you have one Family Council member, just one Family Council member sits on the business board. So you can't have any random member of the family going to the business and making a decision because they are. Family governance does not allow it. The one family member that's appointed to the board is the one family member that comes and speaks on behalf of the family to the board, not to the rest of the company. If you go into the business, you will get arrested. If you go and act foolish in the business, you will get arrested because the business does not know you. The business knows the appointed member from the family council. That means you need to work as one voice, one choir, one sound, one voice. That means when you sit, my children are learning now that we need to sit and make a decision together at home. At the school, they're just students. They're not owners. The paperwork recognizes them as owners and shareholders, but that is a family council conversation. It doesn't happen at school. At the school, they are students. If they want to work for the business, they have to qualify to be hired by the business. So right now what we're working on with my oldest, who's in A-level and she's 14, is you need to get a degree so that you can join the business. You will go and help out. You will go do general handwork and so forth when we're unpacking things, when we're building the business, but it doesn't qualify you for anything. You don't sit on the board. You sit on the family council board. If you have an opinion about the business, you can share it on the family council board. Then the designated family council member will communicate to the business. So you see how family governance works? It means the family has their own forum where we communicate and do everything. I think you've seen it most recently if you look at Econet. When Mr. Masiwa stepped down from his board, his daughter stepped into the board. Because when there's family governance, a family member will always step into the board. There will always be the family's representation on the board. That is how family governance works. You're not going to find random family members going in and saying, Ntruda Motayu, unzemaki. It's not going to work. It fights corporate governance, it fights family governance. It means the communication that is happening at home is now overflowing into the business as a mess. People, clients, people who work for the business, your social capital, all gets eroded by lack of governance. Can you see why? So what can you do to implement family governance? Number one, do an audit. Audit all your capitals. Ask yourself what is not in place, what is in place. Do an asset audit. What will be influenced by the lack of governance? Then start asking yourself, what does succession look like? Have you started speaking to people? Have you started engaging your next gens? And remember this, as long as you use the term heir, or as we say in Shona, vajgibe naka, you are talking about something that is perishable. You are leading stewards. A steward walks into something to be a custodian. Your next gen are going into your business to be custodians. They are looking after the business for the generation after them. They're building their part of the story that is going to be told as part of your family legend of how they took the business to a next level. If that is not happening and people are waiting to spend and to use the wealth, then yes, uninaka, you don't have stewards. Thank you everybody for listening to my session.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Maybe I would just have you stand there and answer a few questions from the audience. Thank you so much for such an insightful session. We may kindly take our seats. I'm just going to give you the opportunity to ask a few questions directly to the speaker. Do we have anyone who want to ask? Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tsitsi.
You're welcome.
I love when I see intelligent women who know what they are doing. It's so refreshing. I wanted to ask, how far does your model or depth of research also cover single-handed families or blended families? Thank you.
So your constitution is very important in managing your family governance, because your constitution is the one thing that can change and evolve and adapt depending on what's going on in the family. Your constitution, you create it because it is a conversation opener. You may have cases where you get adoption or remarriage into the family, or you might have in-laws that invest in the business in a time where the business is going through distress. Your constitution should be very clear in terms of how you handle such situations. And you can only be predictive to a certain level before you then become reactive. So as you are facing something as a family is when you can then start considering inserting it into your constitution and finding ways on how you can manage it. Every family is different. That's why family governance is a very personalized journey. What I do for one family will not be the same as what I do for another family, because every family has different dynamics. The framework remains the same, but how you implement it is very different. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Yes, we have a hand over there.
Thank you, Dr. Tsitsi.
You're welcome.
I think as I was listening, part of my work involves registering companies for people. And as I was listening, I think there is a clash between family business, the Constitution, and the Companies Act. So how do you balance that? Because for people that are teen children that are not yet legal age, it's easy to apply what you're saying, but there are some people that are registered companies today, and then they put their children as directors already without that skills audit everything. So I'm seeing, like, how do you help such companies to be in line with what you're saying?
So already there, from your question, you already have a corporate governance issue. People need to understand when it comes to appointing directors for companies, you are investing in the company for growth. You want that company to be a company that operates on a national and international level. Having family members that are unqualified just sitting there as directors, it erodes confidence from investors and partners. So you might want to look at the formulation of the company and look at, if you are putting your children as directors, are they qualified for the role? Because making them directors doesn't necessarily mean that they are shareholders. Some people can be directors and be earning from the company, but not earning as shareholders, as you already know. So it's putting the shareholder agreement separate from the directorship, and also then making sure that your family governance, everyone is aware what is going on. So for example, you can have cases where they have their children who don't want to be part of the family business, who are not interested and want to take a different route. They are encouraged to understand what's going on in the business so that when decision making comes in the family council, they can help direct the decision making, because not every individual wants to be a family business owner. You have a lot of people who are in careers. So when you are employing people in careers, they want to enter businesses that are stable, businesses that they feel they have confidence in. And when you find out the business is only family members and some of them unqualified, do you feel like you want to get a job there? It becomes tricky, doesn't it? So if you are building for scale, if you're building for generational wealth, you have to run your business as an entity that aligns with corporate governance, and then you have to make sure that your family aligns with family governance. You cannot mix the two. They're two separate. Does that help? Does that answer your question? Okay.
Wow, thank you so much, Tsitsi, and that concludes our session, our second session, and I will now leave this time to our Father Apostle Vutabwashe. Thank you so much for such a powerful session. Come on, let's give you a round of applause.
Oh, thank you. I think what I can say is the subject that has been presented needed to have a bit of a time to deal with it and analyze. America, 95% of the top companies in America, they are family businesses. And they have phases where they had a challenge because of divisions in families. Like the way Disney was once affected, and decisions because of family member representation. All these companies, J.C. Penney, Colgate, Palmolive, Disney, these are family enterprises. J.D. Morgan, even Forbes, these companies, those that go to the C, the MSC, these are family businesses. The Coca-Cola, you need to then see how they are running and where we miss it and how to correct it before you expire too quick. There is a statement my son said. He said to me, I have to be doing something very meaningful because the life you have made me get used to, it will be too hard for me not to live this life again. He said, what have made me test, it will be too horrible for my life to find I'm no longer living this life. You made your child test something, which kunenge kunanzva muromo wemwana nechikafu but hauna kuti haje. Mangwana wozoona mwana anongoziva kunhuhwa kwechicken but kwete kudya chicken. So I want you to really look at this subject very intently. One of the companies that is in pain, there is what is called the Ketty company. The Ketty company in the 11th, 10th century was the company that was trusted by all global monarchs to do jewelries, crowns, all these kings and queens, they were being made by Ketty. And it survived just to move. When the time they got to the 15th century, the company was taken away from the family. But the owners did not change the name. Yet Kate is a surname of a family. Now it's over 290 billion worthy. But the children of the family are no longer part of this. But their fathers started this company. All these monarchs, UK, the Middle East monarch, everywhere, their crowns were being made by this company. But now they don't have access. They just know this empire. Sitariri papandera, ndo seneme yedu, chakasara is seneme mari hapana. So some of these things you might just hear them like this, but you might not know you're actually treading on the same path to lose everything. So before you hit the ground or go to say goodbye to the earth, put your house in order. That was the statement Hezekiah was told. Put your house in order. So I would love a proper dialogue on this matter. So can you adjust your schedule? Because I don't want this to... Me, I've taken some studies. That's why I'm taking this, because I've met many people. They are very ignorant about this. They are very, very ignorant about this matter. So I need you to be saved in this regard quick before you... I mean, no, Ujama. Yeah? Ujama. Do you still remember the Ujama buses? Okay. Go. How many know Shushan? Go Matambanazo. It just went. So we need to solve that part. We need to solve that part. How many know Kukura Gurero? Komunga. So this must be solved. So praise the Lord. Will you mind to give to God? I have not seen anyone giving. So will you mind to give to God before we go to lunch? Will you mind to give? You give like like people who want to be billionaires. Please come give to them. The Lord bless you. Your lunch is blessed.
Okay, thank you so much for all those who came through. We're just going to take a break for the lunch hour service. Then afterwards, we're coming for the next session of the day. Thank you so much. Make sure you're all... Okay, so for the lunch hour service, I just want to let you know that we were free to attend the lunch hour service. Then once the lunch hour service is done, we move on to the next session of the day. Thank you.
Moyo